Hello everyone, welcome back to Python Fundamental at the student-run branch of the IEEE at the University of Toronto. Assuming that you have all the basic knowledge from the first 3 lessons. Today, in this lesson, we will cover for loops, while loops, loops, and nested ifs which continue the if segment from lesson 2. Let's dive right in. Before we explore more complex concepts, let's start with the basics. The for loop is an essential construct in Python that allows us to iterate over a sequence of items. Let's look at an example. In this example, we have a list of fruits, and the for loop will iterate through each item. After that, print it out to the console. In the first iteration, the fruit will be durian. The next iteration will be bananas, and keep doing that until the last element of the list. The syntax for a for loop is straightforward. For item, which is fruit in the situation, in sequence, which is fruits in the situation, followed by the indented block of code. The loop variable, which is fruit, takes on each value from the sequence, one at a time. However, not every time you directly deal with the element of the list. Sometimes you need to deal with the index of a list. For that reason, range is one of the very useful built-in functions in Python. It will return a sequence of integers based on the starting and the ending number. Normally, 0 is a starting number and 1 as a step by default. So let's look at that function. As you can see that we have stopped. If you put only one number in range, automatically it will start from 0 and increasing by 1 until it meets the stop number. Let's do it. For example, if I put 5. As you can see in the console, we have a list of numbers from 0 to 4. Another notice is that you can see that we do not have number 5 here. It means that it takes a number from a starting number inclusively and to the ending number exclusively. If you put 2 numbers in the range function, it will automatically think that it's going to be a start number and a stop number. Now, if I want to change to print out a lesser number for every 2 steps, remember that you must have the start and the stop number first before you put a step. There we go. For now, let's move on to while loop. While loop is another way to iterate in Python. They continue until the specific condition is no longer true. Let's look at the example. In here, I have a variable count and I make it to be 0. While the variable count is less than 5, I'm gonna print out, and with the count plus 1 segment increments the count by 1 in each iteration, my count keep increasing until it's not less than 5. It's gonna break the while loop. Let's see it. So in the console, you see that in the first iteration, my count is 0. It's gonna print out 0, 1, and then until 4. At the 5th iteration, my count plus 1, it will become 5. And 5 is not less than 5. Therefore, the condition is no longer true, and the while loop is gonna break. The syntax for a while loop is while, and then the condition part, followed by an indented block of code. For now, let's explore some advanced concepts. The break segment and the continuous statement. The break segment allows us to exit a loop prematurely, while the continuous statement skips the current iteration and moves to the next one. Let's look at the example. So, I have a list of number over here, and for the number in the list of numbers, if it's encounter the number 13, the loop will terminate. Okay, let's take a look at it. So, what happened if I do something with the continuous statement? As you can see that I have two number 6 in the list. Instead of printing it out, it will skip that iteration and then go to the next iteration. So with the assumption that you guys already know about indexing a list, let's first get started with the question number 1. In this question, I give you guys a list of number, and then if the number is odd, replace that number in a list with the string odd. Otherwise, if you encounter the number 8, you break the for loop. Okay? Now let's pause the video and come back when you already have the answer. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys have figured out the answer for this question. Now let's look at my way. So in this question, you guys need to use a length function. For a number in a range of the length, if the element of that index divided by 2 with the remainder is 1, it means that the number is odd. So I'm going to replace it with the odd string. However, if the number of that index is 8, I'm going to break the for loop. Now let's see. Now you see that 5 is an odd number. I replace it with the odd string, same as with 3. However, even though I have 1 and 9, it is not replace it with the odd string, because when I have 8 here, when I encounter 8 in this position, I already break the for loop. In Python, we're able to use if, elif, and else statement to make decisions. Let's consider this example. In this example, we will use conditional statement to decide whether a number is small, large, or medium. My age, I can put any number there. So if age is less than 90, I'm going to print out in the console small. elif, age is between 90 and 100, it's going to be medium. Otherwise, it's going to be large. So let's see the result. So my age is going to be small. Assume that my age is 95, which is medium. If it's 200, it's going to be large. However, be careful when you decide to use two or more if statements instead of using the elif. The elif statement is used when you have a series of related conditions that you want to evaluate in order. Once a condition evaluates to true, the rest of the condition are skipped. So, for example, let me change this one a little bit. So, I put an extra condition into this block that if age is less than 80, it's going to be very small, and if age is less than 90, it's going to be small. So let's do 75. It's going to print out very small because my age satisfied the first condition within this block. So even though yes, age is 75 is less than 90 is small, but it's gonna skip it because it's already satisfied the previous condition. Another thing is that it is important to note that using the multiple if statement independently can lead to all conditions being evaluated. So instead of using elif here, I'm gonna using if. Let's see the result. We're gonna both have very small and small print out in the console. At first, 75 is less than 80, so you're gonna print out very small. Since you have two independent conditional statements, the next one will also be evaluated. That is the reason why small now print out in the console as well. So it is generally recommended to use elif statement to ensure that only the first matching condition is executed. For now, you guys already have a sense about a loop and elifs. Let's move on to the situation if we combine different loops and if statement together. A nested loop is a loop inside another loop. The outer loop can contain more than one inner loop. Let's look at the for loop example. So, following with the syntax for element in a sequence, that is the outer loop, and inside that I have for element in another sequence, and just the body of the inner loop. Following that is the body of the outer loop. So let's look at this example. So for I, using the range function, it's going to return us the list of number from 0 to 3. So for I, in from 0 to 3, inside here is going to be another for j in a range from 4 to 7. At first, I'm going to print j. After that, I'm going to print nothing. Let's see the result. So, for in the first iteration, I equals 0. I'm going to print out all the element in the range from 4 to a exclusive. In the next iteration, which is I equal to 1, I want to do the same thing until I equal to 3, and then it finished the for loop, the inside. Using the while loop, nested while loop is the same thing. You also have the while, the condition part, inside the body of the outer loop. You also have the while and the condition part, the body of the inner loop and the body of the outer loop. Let's look at the example. So at first I have my v variable to be 0. So while v is less than 4, I'm going to do something inside the body. So now my g is 9. While g is less than 12, I'm going to print out g and keep increasing it by 1. So at first, in the first iteration, v equals 0, g now equal 9. Okay, I print out 9, increasing until g equal to 12, which make the condition part to be false because 12 is not less than 12. It will terminate the inner while loop. After that, it increment v by 1. Then, for now, v equal 1. It keep doing that until v equal 4. Then it will terminate the outer while loop. That's why we have 4, 9, 10, and 11. So now, let's move on to the nested if statement. So when you mention about nested if, it's kind of the same thing with the nested loop. It's going to be inside an if statement, there will be other if statements. So in here, if age is less than 99, I'm going to check even more. So if age is larger than 90, it's going to be large. Larger than 80, it's going to be medium, blah blah, until very small. Let's run it. So with age equals 66, first it passed through the first if statement. 66 is not larger than 90. It move on until the else part, very small. However, before it move on to the inner if statement, it must pass the condition of the outer if statement. For example, if I put age equal to 100, then I run it, nothing will happen because 100 is not less than 99. So for now, using that knowledge, let's do small question. So I have a list that contain 3 small sublists. The first sublist 1, 2, 3. The second sublist contain 4 fruits, and the last sublist contain random numbers. So I want all of them, all the elements inside sublist is going to be added into the list 1. Like 1, 2, 3, continue with apples, bananas, blah blah blah, until 4, 5, 6. So there will be no sublist inside list number 1. Remember, you need to also use the nested for loop or while loop, okay? So let's pause the video and resume it when you have your answer. Welcome back. Hopefully, I believe that you have the answer. For now, let's look at one of the solutions that I prepared for you guys. It's simple. So 4 sublists in the list, in a sequence, and then for elements in that sublist, I'm gonna simply just take that element and append it to the list number 1. That's all. Let's look at the result. Oh, I forgot to print out. As you can see that we no longer have a sublist inside a list. Okay, let's move on to the final topic, that is checking whether an element is inside a dictionary or list. Using the for loop or while loop, we can check whether an element is in a list or not by just looping through all the elements existent in the list. However, we can check an element existed in a list or not. Instead of using for loop or while loop, we can use an in. So I have a sequence or a list of fruits: apples, banana, orange. So if apple is in the list fruits, I'm going to print out in a list. Otherwise, they're not in the list. Now, apple is in the list. Let's change it to be durian. As you can see that durian is not in the list. But what happens if I want to loop through the dictionary? So here I have student grades: Alice, Bob, and Charlie. So if Bob in the dictionary student grades, I'm going to print out, otherwise it is not found. And remember that the list only check the key. Let's run it. Now Bob grades is founded and is 92. For example, if I run another name, as you can see that when using the in, it's gonna check all the key inside the student grades dictionary. So the student named Taiga is not in here. That's why it's gonna print out Taiga's grade not found. So for now, we're gonna move on to the final question. So I'm gonna give you the last question, question number 3. I'm gonna give you a list that contain some dictionary. So if the student score is less than 70, you're gonna print out the student name score is too low. No need to evaluate. Otherwise, do the evaluations. If the student score is larger than or equal to 70 and less than 80, you're gonna print out student name grades. It's gonna be C. If larger or equal than 80 and less than 90, print out grade B. Otherwise, print out grade A. Okay, so same as the last 2 questions. Let's pause the video a little bit and come back when you have the answer. Welcome back. Hopefully you have figured out the solution for the last question. And here I have prepared one solution for you guys. So at first I'm going to look through each student file in a student's list. So if the student score is less than 70, I'm going to print out the student score is too low and no need to evaluate. Then I'm going to skip this iteration and go to the next iteration. If the student scored from 70 to 80, I'm going to print out grade C. From 80 to 90, grade B, otherwise it's going to be grade A. Okay, let's run this solution. So as you can see that Tyga has scored 100, he got grade A. Jane has scored 70, she got grade C. Bob, grade B, because he has 80. And John, since he has 65, less than 70, so it's too low, no need to evaluate. So let's summarize up what we have learned today. Today, you guys have learned for loop, while loop, elif, and nested if. Congratulations for completing this video. With this knowledge, you can now tackle complex problems and leverage the full potential of netted loops in your Python program.